Hello, good afternoon. I'm Ken Kirschenbaum, and this is one of the, this is actually a special webinar that we are putting on. We have a webinar series that we've been putting on, and this one was an add-on because of the emergency issues that have arisen. So today we have Jeff Schulz and Tom Krug from the Krug, J. Krug Brokerage Agency. They're out in Chicago, and they are skilled in the alarm industry. And you know by now that I use the term alarm to encompass all aspects of what people in the alarm, integration, fire industry encompasses all of that. So today's webinar is about business interruption and business interruption insurance. I'm going to turn it over to these two experts. Some of you, probably all of you, have business interruption insurance one way or another. And the idea here is whether or not you're going to be able to make a claim for that business interruption. Can you? How do you? What's it going to be worth to you if you do? Hopefully, we'll be addressing a lot of those issues in this webinar. So, gentlemen, I'm turning it all over to you, and thank you for your contribution to the industry.
Thank you. All right, Ken, let me pull my screen up here. I am Tom Krug with J. Krug, president of J. Krug. This is my counterpart, Jeff Schulz.
Good afternoon.
Hopefully you guys can all see this. I just want to run through the agenda briefly. We're going to give you a little bit of overview about the ISO policy, property policy, business interruption policy, talk about if the policy is going to provide coverage to you as your business might experience a downturn, and I'm sure most of you have. We're going to touch a little bit on legal and legislative changes that might be coming. We are staying in tune with all of that with everything. This seems to be pretty quick moving, so there's a lot of legislative changes and legal developments and insurance regulation changes coming in the near future. We'll talk about the importance of business interruption insurance, give you guys some ideas and takeaways that you can implement right now if you do have a downturn in business, and you can maybe save premiums, make some changes to free up some cash flow right now. And then we always offer to review anyone's policy if you need help or you want a second set of eyes on anything. We're happy to review your policy, ask questions, and help you out in any way that we can. So just to give you an overview, let me get rid of this. Business interruption, I'm sorry. Business interruption is typically found in a commercial property policy. It's not included in all policies. So you might just have a property policy. It's possible that it's included, or maybe you don't even buy it at all. So that's the first place that you're going to want to look, is your commercial property policy, and then it's an add-on to the commercial property policy. And when I just spoke about insurance services office, we're going to be talking today about the insurance services office policy. That's the organization that basically writes all types of commercial policies, and then each insurer, whether it be Travelers, Hartford, Westfield, whoever it might be, they either adopt and subscribe to ISO policies and language, otherwise they will adopt their own forms, but it's generally developed with the ISO policy language. They might have different endorsements that they add on, but today we're just going to be focusing on ISO policies. And just as a disclaimer, every policy is different. Every policy language is different. They have different endorsements on them. And for you to be able to make a business decision as a business owner and file a claim, you need to really consult with your attorney, your risk manager, general counsel. And these claims for business interruption are usually very long in nature, and they take a long time to adjudicate and adjust for. So this is not going to be a short-term cash flow problem solver for you.
We will give a few ideas at the end on ways to save immediate on your insurance premiums, lower exposures, etc. So let's jump into the property portion of your policy. This is going to be determining if you have the coverage, and then what you're going to have to do to see if you'd be able to file a claim and eventually collect possibly. So this is the business interruption policy form. This is what we have to essentially prove in order to submit and have a business interruption claim approved. We will pay for the actual loss of business income you sustain due to the necessary suspension of your operations during the period of restoration. The suspension must be caused by direct physical loss or damage to the property. Additionally, the loss or damage must be caused by or result from a covered cause of loss.
Okay, so what does this mean?
So what does this mean? Let's take a look at it. Start with the physical damage portion. Damage requires physical harm, generally evidenced by changes in the physical characteristics that require repair.
So that is from a court case. That's not just us saying that. That's from a court case surrounding business interruption coverage. So basically, you have to have a physical damage to tangible property to establish a BI claim. So then the next question, does the presence of a virus physically alter the property conditions that you need to, substantially repair it or replace it? Like, does a virus on this table mean that I have to, do work this other than wipe it down? That's a question that's going to be kind of hard to overcome. So in theory, there really is no property damage. And without property damage, you can't really have a business income coverage loss, unfortunately. So that's the first hurdle we have to get by.
So you look at the next part, let's say you're able to get by that property damage portion, and it has to be a covered cause of loss. So is a virus even covered under the policy? So an unendorsed ISO policy clarifies virus, bacteria as a pollutant. Pollutants are a general exclusion under this policy. And there's a mandatory exclusion under exclusion of loss due to virus or bacteria, which is added to commercial policies in the marketplace.
And that's just to reiterate, that's a mandatory exclusion. So if you have an ISO policy, that exclusion is probably on that policy. And that exclusion came out after the SARS epidemic in the early 2000s. A couple of insurers really did get hit with a couple of BI claims, and then the whole industry ISO created this exclusion to clarify that we do not intend to cover viruses for business interruption claims. And there's been a little bit of unethical behavior going on as far as our competition. We've heard of brokers calling on prospects of theirs and saying, hey, do you guys have this pollutant loss of virus or bacteria exclusion on your policy? It shouldn't be on there. Well, it's a mandatory endorsement, so it has to be on there. So just a little bit of tricky behavior going on out there in case they happen to call you.
So next, let's touch on the idea, well, the virus isn't what's shutting down my operation. It's government involvement. So we call that civil authority within the property portion of the policy. There is civil authority built in, included within the, just about every property policy, meaning the business interruption could potentially kick in under civil authority. So let's take a look at that for a moment. The ISO policy reads, action of civil authority that prohibits access to the described premise due to direct physical loss of or damage to property. So once again, there's no physical damage to property. We can still have physical access to the premise. So the civil authority portion of the property policy or coverage is really meant for, take a look at the Boston Marathon bombings where, other businesses around the bombing maybe were damaged or, had to shut down for a few days, but then the government came in and said, well, we're investigating this. You have to be closed for the next month. That is where the business interruption portion of the government shutdown type situation is going to come into a play. So it's not really meant for this type of situation where they're putting limitations on your business, saying you can't have, on the restaurant example, you can't have people come into your business. It's really goes back to that damage to the property.
Physical damage. And then also with business interruption policies, we have a time period deductible. So usually it's a 72-hour waiting period. Sometimes it could be 24 or 48 hours, depending on how you negotiate your insurance policy on the property side. So one more hurdle to kind of overcome is, say that we were able to classify a virus as being damage to property. in most circumstances, it would take 24, 48, 72 hours to clean an entire facility and be reopened for business. So here we're going to have a little bit of trouble with the waiting period deductible. And then say that you cleaned your facility, decontaminate it, and it gets infected again. Again, we're going to start the business interruption waiting period a second time. So we're just, I know that's not a lot of great news for you as a business owner and your insurance policy, but there are court cases going on right now and some legislative changes that are coming. We're aware of 2 cases that have already been filed, one in Louisiana and one in Oklahoma, where the insured and their attorneys have already sued their insurer, saying that they have to pay these business interruption claims. So we're going to keep an eye on those and see how they play out. We're aware of a New Jersey bill that was introduced, but now has been put on hold. The intent of the bill was to mandate that all insurers doing business in the state would have to pay business interruption claims resulting from this virus. So that was introduced early in the week. It's now on hold, and we'll see how it plays out. Am I missing anything?
No. And then in addition to that, I mean, ultimately, yes, it's not looking very, positive for people that are going to look at submitting business interruption claims due to the hurdles that you're possibly going to have to overcome. However, it is something to, keep on top of your mind with these potential legislative changes, court cases that are going to be going on. I mean, this is a, once in a lifetime situation. So it'll be interesting to see how each state handles it, how each insurance company handles it. And ultimately, if you do file a claim with your insurance company, it's still their responsibility to you as their client to find where they are going to deny coverage. So if you've been hit hard or you're expecting this to drag on for the next months, depending on, I know New York, we're in Illinois. Illinois is not looking very good right now as well. So it could go on longer than expected. It's something where you might want to consider possibly putting your insurance company on notice if you think you're going to want to file a claim at some point, because then if legislation or courts make a decision 3 to 4 months down the road, the insurance company can't say, well, it was late reporting, we're going to deny it for another reason. So just something to be aware of. And then in addition to that, something we're advising our clients, there's ways to immediately improve your cash flow, help with some of the expense within your insurance program. So things like lowering your payroll, your sales, doing that on the work comp and the general liability portion. A lot of people have techs that are they've put on furlough or laid off for the next couple of weeks to a month. If you look at lowering your exposure basis on your work comp, on your general liability, say 20 to 30%, you're going to essentially have possibly 2 months of premiums that you won't have to pay. So I would look at making those changes immediately. Something that we're advising our clients just to help with the cash flow, save some monthly premiums over the next couple months until everything's back up and running.
Same thing could be said on the auto side. If you're a dealer and you have trucks that are off the road, a lot of insurers have what we call the laid up endorsement. So you can suspend insurance coverage on those trucks for an extended period of time if you'd like, and significantly reduce the auto premium on those trucks. That's just one other idea that you can use right now.
Let me see if I can. I want to recap where we are so far. I'm strictly an attendee at this point. I've nothing to contribute other than questions. Okay, but are we basically? This is where we're at. Almost everybody, all companies are carrying property insurance. These policies are going to, most of them or a lot of them are going to include business interruption coverage. The business interruption coverage is going to have a virus exclusion. And so the only way we're going to be able to tap into the business interruption, which is still going to require establishing actual business disruption, which we do have, everybody has it at this point, is actually the thought going through my head was, well, we have to wait for the riots to start so that there's actual property damage. But then I thought, you guys would come right back and tell me, well, guess what? Riot damage isn't covered either for property loss. So we're gonna have to call it something else than that. Does that sum up what you guys said? And then I'll get into the actual serious questions.
Yeah, that about sums it up. It's kind of, at this point, it's kind of hard for us to establish coverage, and we've been on conference calls all week and webinars all week, and we have to get over a lot of these hurdles to file BI claims and get them paid on behalf of our clients.
Keep in mind that there might be legislation that changes everything.
Right.
So we will be keeping an eye on that, and of course we'll be right back up with our webinars if that happens. So here's some questions for you guys. Does the CARES Act have any effect on insurance? For example, mandating business interruption coverage during a covered period.
I have not seen that.
Yeah, the answer is no. Okay.
I don't believe so.
Could we have had these coverages written differently, and will we have the opportunity to do so in the future? Well, probably be a tough sell to tell an insurance company, how about excluding virus now?
I have a response on that. So if you wanted to buy pandemic insurance before this, you probably could have bought it. But who would have thought and paid a substantial premium for pandemic insurance? I think the NCAA basketball tournament had an event cancellation policy, and it paid out. They did have basically coverage for anything and everything that could shut down the tournament. But at the end of the day, it's not making them whole. So you probably could have bought pandemic insurance, business interruption coverage, but it would be like buying, I think the answer is most people would not choose to purchase that before this outbreak. Secondly, a lot of our industry peers and our insurers that we deal with on a daily basis, they think that this event is going to be more impactful to the insurance industry than 9/11 was. So after 9/11, the government created the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act, which basically says that the insurance carriers will, if you as a policyholder purchase TRIA, the insurance carrier will pay terrorism claims. It's got to be a certified act of terrorism as defined by the Secretary of the Treasury and I believe the Department of Defense. So the carrier would pay the claims, and then the claims would be backstopped by the federal government, the Department of the Treasury. I think that we're going to see a similar circumstance here with pandemic insurance. You're going to have a government backstopped, kind of like the National Flood Insurance Program and the Terrorism Risk Insurance Program. We'll have a pandemic type of bolt-on for coverage for these future events.
Right. Someone observed before exclusions are considered, you need to see if there are triggers, meaning before you start to talk about exclusions, you have to talk about whether there's actual coverage to begin with, right? That's what I think he's saying.
Yeah, you gotta see if you have even business interruption coverage, because like we said, it's not included on every single property policy. Some people just simply don't buy it. They've been offered it and they don't buy it. So you got to take a look at your property policy. We're happy to do that. We can find it in a couple minutes for you.
Let me ask you something. If one of our clients takes you up on this generous offer and sends you their property policy, okay, emails it to you, what should they actually be anticipating? Almost a slim to none, and would that be overly optimistic that they might have some coverage?
What we've seen is the policies that are non-ISO that may not have the virus exclusion. Those seem to be policies where a lot of attorneys and coverage lawyers are looking to find coverage. Those seem to be a little bit more hopeful. But if you have an ISO policy with the virus exclusion, I think we're going to have a tougher road.
All right, you guys are going to keep up on the what's going on all over the place, lawsuits, pending legislation.
Absolutely.
You'll let us know, and we'll let everybody else know.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And if something does change, we're going to hop on another webinar and direct everybody and help out.
Okay. Okay. We have any more questions? what percentage would they estimate are policies that are non-ISO that are written?
I would say 50%. Basically, what we see with our clients, half of our insurers are about ISO based. But again, ISO kind of sets a standard and they're all very similar in language. So you might have 50% that are ISO and then 50% that are non-ISO.
Okay. That he said that's more than he thought. Let's go, folks. Any more questions? These guys left their safe home and came to their office to handle all these questions. I know, listen, I see this as, what a topic. Who wants to think about this, especially with the news we're getting, right? Come on, guys, give us something encouraging.
We had, well, gave you something, some things that they can take back and implement right now to free up cash, stay alive. And then also, BI, business interruption, has never gotten this much attention in my insurance career. So it is an important part of a property policy and a risk management strategy. So, say you do have a fire or maybe a cyber attack, there's what we call cyber business interruption coverage. If they hack your system and shut you down for months or weeks, there's such a coverage that you can buy that's not very expensive for business interruption. So, this is an eye opener for a lot of companies, and business interruption usually takes a back seat to a lot of other like liability coverages, errors and omissions coverage, but it is an important part of a risk management strategy.
All right, you'll be happy to hear the questions are rolling in, gentlemen. What if we are unable to service a customer and they have a loss? I don't know if that's an insurance question, but you guys want to take a stab at it?
They will do. So you can't fix their alarm system and they have a loss.
You better have a Kirschenbaum contract. That's all I can tell you.
I guess it would stem to hit the liability section, but they'd have to prove that you were negligent just because you couldn't get there. I have to think about that. I don't have a great answer.
I wonder if that was in connection with the insurance that people are carrying. I'm not sure if it was though. Let me see if I can hit the rest of these questions as we go along. If we're unable to service and a customer has a loss, you're going to be excused now for sure, even though you're an essential operation. The fact remains you may not be able to service your customers as you have contractually agreed to do. On auto insurance abatement, auto insurance, car insurance abatement, seems risky if some techs are still able to work. Did you guys suggest trying to abate premiums?
Yeah, if you have truck, if the circumstance may be where the techs don't bring their trucks home at night or on the weekends, if you have, they come to the office and take their trucks, we've been laying them up. Yeah, it is risky if they are driving them for personal use, but if they're sitting in your warehouse or your lot that's locked up, and typically we recommend that you disable the truck so someone can't get in it and drive it and get in an accident.
Okay, so what we're talking about is contacting your broker or your carrier and asking for an abatement because the risk that you are getting the insurance for is being temporarily suspended because you're not using your office or you're not using your car or I don't know, maybe you have no employees left. Okay, but let me say this.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me just say this to you. Do not take it upon yourself to decide that you don't need the insurance and therefore you're not going to pay the premium. You need to get a written waiver from your carrier. I mean, I don't know whether you'll get it. I suspect you won't. And this all may be over before you end up getting an answer anyway. But that would be my take. Guys, you got a different take?
Yeah, so each insurance company handles it slightly different, but I would just ask them if they offer any sort of layup endorsement is what it's called. And essentially it's suspending, you're just not paying premium on it because it's not being operated currently. So it's just an option that some insurance carriers offer, and the premium is significantly less during this. It's usually like a 30-day window they allow it for. if it's sitting in your warehouse, no one's using it, you're still paying premiums on it, but it's just significantly less.
This is a follow-up to that. Do you know of any specific underwriter, by that I think he means carrier, that has offered help during this time with coverage in their policies?
Not specifically BI coverage, not that yet, but a lot of carriers have, like I think Hartford specifically has kind of given a waiver, not waiver on premium, but they're deferring premium payments in the future. So if you can't make your April payment on your insurance, I think they're deferring it. They're easing up on some of the regulations surrounding cancellation. So if you're a late pay, they're not going to cancel you within the 10-day window that they have to. They're going to extend that out a little bit. What was the other issue?
The non-pay, the cancellation was the big thing. A lot of them are extending it in through May till June. I mean, obviously you still want to make your insurance premiums, but they are giving a little leeway.
And the audit, there's kind of suspending audits right now. They're not going to try to meet with you to conduct your year-end audit.
What about an employee that you had work that gets a virus? Can he sue us? He also answers it. I don't see how they could ever prove how they. Well, they might be able to prove it. Let's assume they can prove it. Then what? I think that gets back to, well, first of all, if they can sue you, it's going to be for workers' comp. You're going to be protected for workers' comp, I would assume.
And yeah, and each state has their own work comp commission where it would fall under, and they would take it from there. But if an employee comes to anyone on the webinar and says that I, got the virus while I was working, I would look for your work comp policy first.
Definitely file a claim.
Is cyber just regulatory compliance coverage more than business interruption coverage?
We see that a lot. We have had cyber incidents where we paid out because they couldn't operate. So we have had claims where people have a dedicated loss. And typically the cyber will pay. The situation is you get a ransomware attack. You come to work and your whole system's locked up, and these hackers want $1 million in Bitcoin, and you're locked up for a couple of months while you're figuring it out. The cyber will pay. Typically a good cyber policy pays that ransom and will pay your lost income if you can't operate for a period of time.
Is that included in most policies, or that's something you have to go out and get?
Something you got. Cyber is typically a separate policy in itself. If it's included in a package policy, it's probably a very limited cyber policy. But a good cyber policy is relatively inexpensive, $3,000 to $4,000, I would say, to start for $1 million policy, and pretty good coverage you can get.
3,000 to 4,000. That's easy for you to say. You're the broker.
Well, for the risk.
Yeah.
You see a lot of cyber. I mean, we see a lot of cyber claims more than liability claims, I would say.
Do you see a lot of ransomware attacks?
Absolutely. In fact, our landlord just got hit with a ransomware, and they have large buildings all over the country.
Well, I'll tell you, I was hit with a ransomware attack, and we were down for about half a day, but our IT people were able to overcome it. And that was the end of it. So we didn't pay out. Anyone who knows me would know I'm too cheap to pay out. So we wouldn't be here today if I was still locked up. Okay. So insureds can reduce or eliminate optional coverages to reduce premium costs. People may be paying for coverages they don't really need. That's an observation made by one of the attendees.
Yep, that is true.
Okay.
At times like these, we do, we are going through that exercise with clients.
I don't know what this is. Someone is saying that your calendar is showing on the screen for some, so I don't know. Okay, I don't know what's in it.
Not much.
You can't be doing anything that interesting or they wouldn't be here. If there are exclusions like viruses in the BI policy, are there other angles that can be pursued to file a claim circumventing the exclusions? Can the government step in to void the exclusions. Those are legal issues, and I think we're going to have to wait and see if anyone is successful with those. Unfortunately, I don't think I have any clients willing to pay me to test those issues. If you are willing, let me know. We'll be more than happy to start a lawsuit. We'll find somebody to sue.
But, this package that they just passed today and hopefully get signed by the president, has a lot of business interruption, I believe, loans and grants. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And we're willing to help. I think insurance premiums were part of that grant program. So Ken, I know you will be willing to help fill out the proper applications and get people the business interruption really that they need.
Yeah, I had mentioned that we were going, my office has already designated some attorneys and support staff to form a new team that are going to be assisting our clients file for these forgivable loans. That's the only one that I'm particularly interested in. If they're willing, so if they're willing to give us a loan that can be used to pay certain expenses, which, as I understand it, is payroll, rent, insurance premiums, to be used between now and the end of the year, then the loan will be forgiven, provided you've used the funds as you were supposed to. And I'm not sure what other criteria there is. That's what my staff will be looking at. But we're going to assist our clients. Of course, this audience is a nationwide audience in the alarm industry, but my office also represents a very large segment of the healthcare providers in New York, doctors and other healthcare professionals, all of whom have also been hit with the shutdown in New York, which is what we have. They, like the alarm industry, are essential services, but nevertheless, a lot of them are unable to function or service their patients, and we're going to be inundated by them. Doctors sort of rely a little bit more on us than the alarm guys do for their business end of things, where the alarm guys are looking to us for their lawsuit issues and when they're in trouble. But I would suggest that you alarm guys that are on here, particularly if you're in New York, that you take yourself, avail yourself of the team that we're putting together and let us help you put together for these loans. There's no reason why you shouldn't be getting them. And you're going to have to stay in touch with us, because you're going to need to comply once you get the money. So you need to be careful about that. Here's a comment. Ken, this is not a question, but a comment. Thank you and your team for offering these helpful seminars. You and your team are the best. Please share my feelings if you wish. Well, thank you so much, Brett. That came from Brett Blesson, and I appreciate the positive reinforcement. Hartford has been very proactive with us. Our audit have been delayed. Wow, isn't that nice of them? Your audit's been delayed. Well, how about if they didn't audit you at all? That would be nice too. Hartford, when it comes to claims, but okay, I'll leave that one for an E&O webinar.
Yeah. Yep.
I actually think I have Hartford for my workers' comp, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure. Fishing for business tip. The car dealer just called. Last time my wife's car was in, they said the battery was coming to end of life based on years. I said we will wait. They are looking to see if I want to bring it in. Where is this going? They are creating business opportunities. What is that? What is that supposed to mean? Bart. Tell us more about deferring workers' compensation.
All right, so workers' compensation is the premium is developed by your annual payroll. So if you're laying people off, or you've got people on reduced hours, maybe at the beginning of the year you projected $1 million in tech payroll. If those guys are off work, you can adjust those payrolls at any time during the policy period. Typically, with most carriers, we can send an endorsement saying, hey, we thought it was going to be $1 million, now we think it's going to be $500,000. You can revise that down and therefore bring the premium down, your payments down.
Okay, this is a long one, so stick with it. Does this imply coverage civil authority when covered cause of loss causes damage to property other than covered property at a premises? We will, oh, they want us, no, we're not gonna, I'm not gonna read your insurance policy to these guys, forget it. Call them up afterwards and be prepared to take your checkbook out, okay? I'm not reading this.
Yeah, we can answer any questions, any specific questions, email or phone, whatever is best for anyone listening.
They're simple. Their service guys are sitting around and the car dealer is fishing to get work in the door. Well, first of all, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with doing that? I had alarm client call a little earlier today, and he said to me that he was going to furlough some employees because they weren't working. And well, furlough, of course, is a nicer way of saying fire. Even if it's on a temporary basis. And I was curious. I said, "You're an essential business. Why aren't you working?" And they seem to his position was that he was doing a lot of work for GCs and in the city, and they were putting stop to all construction work. And he was actually surprised to hear when I said to him, "But you can be sending people to your customers, their homes, to be doing installation or service work, as long as they're willing to let you in. There's nothing wrong with it." So there are things that alarm companies can be doing, and you need to be careful about laying off employees if you want to qualify for the loan program. I believe you are not going to be able to lay off more than 25% of your payroll. So be careful before you let them down. Now the law's out already. I haven't had time to read it, and my staff hasn't advised me yet. But we're gonna need to answer that. So before you get ready to lay any people off, let us know. See what we can do to help you. So, any more questions? Okay, I think we're reaching the end of our rope here. And I want to thank you guys for coming in and presenting.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope we see a lot more of you, and I hope you participate on my forum even more than you do. I think I hear from Jeff once in a while. You're more than welcome to contribute. I hope you get a lot of new business. Anyone on this call should make sure you send these guys your business. They're professional and they know what they're doing and they know this industry. And
Thank you.
That's what's important. Okay.
Great,
So,
thank you.
everybody be safe. Enjoy the rest of the day and have a nice weekend. Take care.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.